No, I am not a PhD candidate in linguistics, and I don't get to be called doctor for writing a fancy thesis on abstruse language hermeneutics that nobody will ever read. I'm just a language enthusiast who's learned some languages to different levels of fluency. When I started this channel, I simply produced videos on things I had learned, how I had learned them, and had the audacity to think people would actually be interested in that. But then I ran out of things I had learned at extraordinary speed, so I just threw out an animation video asking whether Arabic was a dead language, something apparently shocking enough to grab the attention of even the TikTok minds. Now, some people took that video as definitive proof that I was anti-Arab, an Israeli agent, a Chinese government propagandist, or, my favorite, an AI. But at the risk of disappointing you, this video was simply inspired by an article I had come across claiming that Arabic wasn't spoken as a first language, making it a de facto dead language. Because, yes, a dead language is apparently defined as one that has no native speakers. Seeing the sudden interest in my channel, I thought I'd keep riding the wave by producing more animation videos on things people wanted to know, without ever having thought about them before. As time went on, I put out a number of these until I made a video about Kurdish, and in the sea of threats, negativity, and insults I received, I also came across comments that actually made me rethink my stance. For instance, why is Kurdish the only language that gets the continuum of dialects label? Why are Mandarin and Cantonese both called Chinese, despite not being mutually intelligible? And it really got me thinking. And the more I was thinking about the inconsistencies of it all, the more absurd it looked to me. Standard Arabic is a dead language. Alright, but then why isn't Standard Japanese? Nobody actually speaks Hyojungo, and Japanese people themselves make a striking distinction between hanashi kotoba and kaki kotoba. Essentially, they don't write the way they speak, and yet only MSA gets the dead language label. Why is that? Now, take Finnish. It's considered a living language, despite spoken and written Finnish being significantly different, more so than in many other languages. And yet again, only MSA is dead. Why? Then there is Kurdish, officially a continuum of dialects, not separate languages, despite major grammatical differences like ergativity and the absence or presence of gender. Yet, Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian, which are far more similar than some Kurdish variations, are considered separate languages, not dialects of some hypothetical language called, say, Norse. Why? Similarly, Spanish and Portuguese are different languages, not part of a Romance continuum of dialects, even though the differences are often smaller than those between some Kurdish variations that aren't mutually intelligible. Cantonese, and Hunanese, none of them are mutually intelligible, yet they're all called Chinese dialects. Meanwhile, German dialects, many of which are mutually intelligible, also get the dialect label. So, widely different Chinese languages, dialects. Similar German variations, also dialects. So what is a language and what is a dialect? What is Chinese? Could this confusion be due to the idea conveyed by these characters, wrongly translated as dialect, a remark also applicable to Japanese? And what about Dutch and Afrikaans? Catalan and Occitan, Czech and Slovak, Hindi and Urdu, Serbian and Croatian, all called separate languages. But Moroccans and Algerians? Well, somehow they just speak Arabic dialects. How does that whole thing make sense? Does this all seem arbitrary to you? Well, it does to me. Linguistic differences alone rarely dictate these distinctions. Politics plays a major role. National identity and cultural heritage shape whether people perceive their own speech as a separate language. Historical accidents, and I reckon some scholarly biases too, decide which variations get prestige, standardization, and the language label. Languages and dialects exist on a spectrum, and the dividing lines between them are often shaped by power, identity, and history more than by strict linguistic criteria. If you find these classifications bizarre and arbitrary, that's probably because, from a purely linguistic perspective, they might well be. The real issue, I believe, is that many of us take these distinctions at face value without questioning where they come from or what motivates them. I've spent years in the language learning community and have often seen languages discarded for not being standardized, for not being official, or for not having enough speakers. And I've been guilty of this too. I believe it's important to be aware of how arbitrary these classifications can be, and to consider just how much they shape the way we think about languages and knowledge in general. Now, we could also ask why these classifications exist as they do. One hypothesis might be that the field of linguistics was primarily developed by speakers of European languages, which tend to have fewer extreme differences between the standardized version and the way people speak, even though this doesn't apply to all of them, as I've already pointed out. On top of that, not all languages or linguistic fields receive the same attention or funding, so studies often reflect the biases and ideologies of those who produce them. On that note, thank you very much for the comments, even the threats and the hate, because they helped me rethink many things, and I believe that's exactly what YouTube should be about, a communal space where everyone can learn and improve. And since I know we've got a lot of keyboard warriors out there, let me just grab my shield and armor, and I'll meet you in the arena. Thank you for watching, and maybe see you next time. Bye-bye.